When DC announced that James Gunn and Peter Safran would be taking over at the helm of DC Studios and would be overhauling the DC Universe, fans had mixed reactions. Some wanted the Snyderverse to continue and see its finish, while others were ready for a fresh start amid mixed reactions from past films. DC's first attempt at a connected universe did not go as planned. They rushed crossover films and, most importantly, did not build their characters the way they should have. Instead of giving Batman one of their most popular characters his own solo film, they opted for a crossover Batman vs Superman film. On paper, this seemed ideal, as this is something the fans had wanted, but in hindsight, it was too early. The film did not flop, but it was not well received by fans, killing Superman in only his second ever appearance. Also factoring in the lackluster story, this kickstarted a domino effect and the DCEU never recovered. The DCEU's next film to come out after Man of Steel and Batman v Superman was another team-up film, but not the way people expected. This was the first quote-unquote anti-hero film. This film took the villains of the universe and made them an anti-hero team. This was our first introduction to characters such as Harley Quinn and this universe's Joker. The film was a box office success but did have mixed reactions from fans, specifically the portrayal of Joker in the film. The story of the film was decent for what it was going for, but overall did not have any connectivity to the broader universe. The next pillar in the downfall was 2017's Justice League. This film went through many changes that proved to be a huge mistake for the film. Coming off of the success of the Avengers films and DC wanting to have their own blockbuster team-up film, the Justice League film was born. This film had a lot to accomplish. Wonder Woman had already been established with her solo film months before. The rest of the heroes were not introduced as of yet and were not established. Aquaman, Cyborg, and The Flash were all going to be making their first appearances in the universe, aside from the Flash cameo in Batman v Superman. Zack Snyder was helmed to direct the film, coming after he directed both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. Snyder's vision for this film was to have a dark and gritty story. Due to the poor reception for Batman v Superman, the studio did not agree with his direction for the film and asked him to rewrite major parts of his script. This was a reason that Zack Snyder eventually left the film and Joss Whedon was brought on to oversee the reshoots and bring a different version to. This was the reason that Zack Snyder eventually left the film and Joss Whedon was brought. This was the reason Zack Snyder eventually left the film and Joss Whedon was brought on to oversee the reshoots and bring a different version of the film to life. The most crucial reason as to why Zack Snyder did leave the film entirely was the tragic passing of his daughter Autumn. I will not get into the details, but please, I encourage you all watching this video to check on your loved ones. You never know when someone may need you. Back to the video. The film's tone would get a major overhaul with DC wanting Joss Whedon to give a more optimistic tone as to Snyder's dark take. Whedon's previous work at Marvel on the Avengers films was a major reason this was made. DC thought that if they took a page from Marvel's book, they would get similar results. The thing is, DC is not Marvel and Marvel is not DC. To say the least, the film flopped. The total losses on the film were around 60 million. Fans alike agreed that the character introductions were rushed and the characters did not emotionally connect to the audience. Also, with the major overhaul to the film's production, this film was bound to fail. Years later, in 2021, fans were finally able to see Snyder's version of the film as DC released the Snyder Cut, leaving fan demand high for Snyder's return. Moving to 2020, this is when the sequel to Wonder Woman was released. The sequel titled Wonder Woman 1984. This film was another film under the DCEU. This film only grossed around 169 million globally. One contributing factor to this was the COVID-19 pandemic. Theaters were not being filled due to the pandemic, and this took a toll on the film. The film also garnered mixed reviews from its audience. The shift in tone for the sequel and the story did not resonate well with fans, and this contributed to the downfall of the film. Audiences were expecting a lot from this film due to the first film being critically acclaimed. The studio failed to meet expectations, and this only added to the fire. We are nearing the end of the DCU, and this means the next film we have to talk about is Black Adam. As early as 2007, Dwayne Johnson expressed interest in starring as Black Adam. In September of 2014, he was officially cast as Black Adam. The film went into production in June of 2020. Dwayne Johnson essentially had control over the film and everything that went on with it. The film's early vision started many years earlier, going through many changes of when Black Adam would join the universe, who would be in the film, and what the film would ultimately be. This turned out to be another flaw for the DCEU. The film failed at the box office and received mixed reviews from fans. The story was lackluster and did not connect with fans. Also, not to factor in, the negative view of the DCEU at this point also contributed to the performance of the film. The hype for this film also made fans eager, and it did not pay off. Now, we have reached the end of the DCEU 2023. This year saw the release of the final two films in this universe, The Flash and Aquaman 2. Both of these films were the final nail in the coffin. The Flash was a solid film in my opinion, but the public perception of Ezra Miller ultimately resulted in the film flopping. As for Aquaman 2, this film flopped due to the fans no longer being interested in the universe. DC had also come out publicly and stated that this would be the final film in the DCEU, resulting in fans no longer lining up to see the film. This brings us to our end. The DCEU was a failure in hindsight, but it could have been a great universe. Shifts in creative direction and not understanding their own characters are what resulted in the universe dying the way that it did. Not understanding what their fans wanted, and also not utilizing their biggest characters correctly is what contributed to the downfall of the DCEU. With the new DCU, things are looking bright and the creatives seem to know what they are doing. As for the DCEU, fans can only ponder the question, what if?